I never was particularly fond of Goodwill, but my frustrations with them have grown throughout this year. And while I traditionally would buy things at either Savers or Value Village, which you may be aware of if you have one in your area, they're a similar thrift store to Savers. However, their profits went to work in it seemed like more meaningful ways up until about a year ago. Now I kind of put them into question as well. But I haven't been going to thrift stores in probably the past 6 months or more, despite the fact that I made this video here at the beginning of the year where I was actually flipping video games, and it seems like everybody got into flipping video games around that time and is trying to do it right now, and that's created a huge problem in the video game market. If I'm not seeing frustrated people on TikTok complaining about how expensive everything at Goodwill has gotten, I hear statements like this.
Thrift shops used to be such fun places to treasure hunt until internet flippers started sucking the life out of them for quick profits. Now they're like gutted whale carcasses stranded on the desolate beaches of capitalism rather than the altruistic spiritual exchanges they were meant to be. Let some teenager still pay $5 for a vintage jacket they're gonna wear every day for the next 3 years rather than a flipper flipping it to a flipper, flipping it to another flipper until it ends up at a high-end store in Japan.
And I get it. It's not just about video games. In fact, it's about many of the things that are in thrift stores. I want to primarily focus today on video games. And at the end of the day, the name of the game, of course, is capitalism. That's why people were doing this. They were buying low at thrift stores and they were trying to sell high online. But the interesting thing, and the reason why I got out of even bothering with this after just a few months' time, was obviously Goodwill, Savers, the rest of these thrift stores, most pawn shops. They all caught on. They all heard how expensive, that Super Mario 64 was going for. And they took another look at their old video games and they said, maybe we should look how much these are worth before we put them out for sale. So no longer did it become a scenario where all the video games were $3, which is what used to be the case at my Goodwill and Savers, which now is laughable because the lowest price I've seen lately is $7 in my few trips there. But it became actually a scenario where the pricing person no longer makes the decision. Assumably, from what I understand, a computer does. Some sort of algorithm or something like that Savers has put together, which likely is just looking at sold listings on eBay, actually takes into account those and creates the price that gets put on the sticker, which results in the game being priced similar to market value at a thrift store. And this is not just frustrating for people who want to resell the video games. Obviously, their margins have been cut razor thin, if not basically impossible. But it's something that's frustrating for people who even want to buy and play the video games themselves. The collectors, they can't go into thrift stores and pick up games anymore either because the prices just aren't that great. Doesn't make it be meaningful to go buy from a thrift store instead of buying from a video game store when it seems like the prices are running so close to each other. Or heck, it would just be easier just to go buy the game on eBay. You see, when you buy a game at a thrift store, you're getting a very poor consumer experience. You're going into the store, you don't know if they're going to have what you want. In fact, they probably aren't because their inventory is so limited to. Additionally, they lack the knowledgeable and focused salespeople of a video game store that have a lot of knowledge about video games. You're not necessarily going to find that at a thrift store, but most of all, their return policies are oftentimes atrocious, and the condition of the game seems irrelevant to them. The inclusion of a manual doesn't really get factored into the price, at least at my stores, whereas at a proper video game store, it would, and that matters to a lot of people who want to collect and play older video games. I guess the most frustrating part about all of this, at least for me, and seeing the games at Savers now having like a bottom dollar price of $7, which is to say that a copy of Madden 06 on the PlayStation 2 is $7, is that this is just kind of one huge circle of greed built around the concept of a nonprofit organization, even though it kind of feels like they're so far away from that at this point. I mean, I get that legally, yes, Goodwill is a non-profit, and Savers used to be a non-profit, but to my understanding are no longer, as they no longer give their money to the Epilepsy Foundation, and now I think they're a for-profit thrift store, which just seems wrong, I guess. And though Goodwill is technically a non-profit, their whole kind of thing is like, we give people jobs, and like, yeah, I get it, Goodwill, you give people jobs. I should apparently give you the inventory for your store for free, because you give people jobs. But Walmart, they're over here buying their inventory, and they give people jobs too. So it never really made much sense to me, the whole guise of Goodwill being a nonprofit in a legal sense anyways. So on one hand, in this greed cycle, you have the inventory coming into Goodwill for free. Anything that they sell it for is virtually profit outside of the cost of their labor, which that and the cost of the building is their only real expense in this, because again, they did not buy this inventory, this $7 Mad Note 6 game they are attempting to sell. They did not buy that. So that $7 is by and large profit. It's being sold to someone that has the intention of taking it and reselling it on the internet so that they too can make a profit. So an item that someone generously gave away has now been marked up by two different people to reach its end goal of the guy that was willing to pay a premium to buy it on eBay. And it's just really disappointing because I feel like we're at a point in time where thrift stores could not be more popular. It used to be this thing where if you bought your clothes at a thrift store, you were poor, you were looked badly on. Now it's like kind of a hip thing to do. So we're at a period where thrift stores could not be more popular, yet I don't think that thrift stores could be more hated than they are right now, because the prices on everything have climbed with that increased popularity and desire of people to go to the thrift stores. So maybe this is just the new normal. It's something that we have to get used to, and something that I have to accept that, well, I don't really have a place in going to thrift stores anymore. And at the end of the day, that's okay, because there's enough other avenues to acquire these games, be it physically or digitally, that I guess I don't really see a point of going there and dealing with the hassle of the lack of inventory that they frequently have, because again, it's not a video game store. They don't have consistent good inventory, and what I am personally looking for may not always be there. So to pay near market price for something that I wasn't necessarily looking for is not worthwhile to me, and I assume it's not worthwhile to most people who are into collecting video games. I think it's just a sign of the times that we're living in. The internet, in a way, took out the middleman and made it be easier for consumers to get goods directly from the manufacturers. And somehow in 2021, we've put the middleman back in the middle. It's the flipper, the reseller. It's the reason why you can't get a PlayStation 5 on a store shelf yet. We've put the middleman back into the scenario. So what the internet originally did good for us has now ultimately created a problem. Though I will say, it's a little bit more acceptable that, any of us can be the middleman if we want to be. It just doesn't necessarily feel morally great to do. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.